Singing good now.
That's it.
Can you hear me okay?
Sir.
So y'all have to put up with me for a second Sunday morning in a row. Sorry. So I'm not going to, so last week what I taught on Psalms was a one and done. I love Psalms and I'll circle back, but I actually want to jump into a book that I don't know how many of y'all here have read it or studied it. And it's the book of Hosea. It's in the Minor Prophets. I will have to say, while I've heard it preached some, I don't hear a lot of people preach out of the Minor Prophets a whole lot. And it's kind of interesting to me because there's a lot with it. I mean, there's a lot in every book of the Bible, right? Because God is the writer of every one. Man just put the pen to paper, but God is the writer of every word of the Bible. But I don't, in my life, I've heard some preaching from it, but it never gets the same share of focus. And there's a lot in the books of the prophets and the minor prophets that point toward God's plan of redemption and God's love for us. So I was going to jump into Hosea, but I want to give a little groundwork, or a little groundwork here for you. So the minor prophets are not called the minor prophets because they are any less important than the major prophets, which are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. They're not any less important than them, right? In fact, if Hosea is actually a longer book than Daniel, so it's not based on the length of the books. But I think if you look at where they were and you look at the major prophets had a much broader scope of what they were called to do in their times. Right? So the minor prophets are not any less important than the major prophets or any other book in the Bible. They're worth studying. It's been a while since I've studied through them, and I had started again, so I just happened to start Hosea, and I wanted to share with y'all kind of what I get from it, because I actually looking for every time I see things a little different. Every time you look at the Bible, even if you've studied something, you go back and study it again, if you don't get something new, you're not looking hard enough, right? Because the Bible speaks to you in where you are at that moment as well, right? The Bible's solid, it's us who change, right? So the Bible may have a different meaning for us. And as I was studying through Hosea, if we get to chapter 2 today, in fact, I had a discussion with David on this last night, and something he said made me go back and think through this. And my perception of chapter 2 is quite a bit different than the first time I studied it and the way I've heard it preached. And so if we get to chapter 2 today, I'll share that with you, but we're going to start in chapter 1. And then the other groundwork for this is, who was Hosea and when did he live? So Hosea lived at the time of the split kingdom, right? He had a couple of contemporaries who are in here, and I just got to go through and find my notes because they're a little out of order here. So Hosea was a prophet to the kingdom of Israel, right? So at this time, there was Israel and there was Judah. So it was a split kingdom. David ruled a united kingdom, Solomon ruled a united kingdom, and after that everything fell apart. You had the 10 tribes of Israel, and you had the 2 tribes of Judah. Hosea was a prophet sent to Israel. Amos was another prophet. He was a contemporary of his, so if you read the book of Amos, Amos lived around the same time. He's also a prophet to Israel. And then you had Isaiah, who we all heard a lot about Isaiah, and you have Micah. They were contemporaries at that time as well. So all 4 of these prophets lived in the same general time, but Hosea was a prophet sent to Israel, okay, to speak to those people by God. God sent him to give them a message. And then the other thing about it is in Hosea's lifetime is when the kingdom of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, were taken into captivity by the Assyrians. And his message from the Lord to the people of Israel was warning them. It was a warning to them of where they were in their relationship with God and what he was going to punish them with if they did not change their ways. And they obviously didn't, because God's punishment came down. The Assyrians came in and conquered Israel, and those 10 tribes were taken into captivity at that point. So keep that in mind. That's the nation that God has sent him to give his message to. And at this time, Israel is actually a very profitable, well-to-do nation. They're not suffering. God has blessed them. God has taken care of them. He has provided for them. But spiritually, they've turned their back on God. So as we go through Hosea, you got to understand that's who he's teaching. He's teaching to a nation that is in a good place financially. God's provided everything for them, but spiritually, they're not recognizing. They're not looking to God. So I'm going to read chapter 1, and I want to talk through it, and then I'm going to probably try to get to the start of chapter 2, because there's a unique transition there, and the way I read it may be different than the way other people have taught it as well. So starting in Hosea, I'm going to read all 11 verses. The word of the Lord. Oh, sorry. I'll get my glasses so I can actually read. Okay. The word of the Lord that came unto Hosea the son of Beri in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, king of Israel, the beginning of the word of the Lord by Hosea. And the Lord said to Hosea, Go, take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblam, which conceived and bare him a son. And the Lord said unto him, Call his name Jezreel. For yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it shall come to pass that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. And she conceived again and bare a daughter. And the Lord said unto him, Call her name Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, Call his name Lo-Ami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said of them, you are not my people, here it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for your gift of salvation, Lord, to me, Lord, that doesn't deserve that grace or that mercy, and I thank you for that. Lord, I just pray that you be with the classes as they go on today, Lord, with the children, the teens, just be with their teachers as they bring lessons, Lord. Lord, I just pray that you bring with me as I share the book Hosea and what I read in it, Lord, and just how you've asked me to just kind of share this, Lord. Lord, I thank you for this church, and I thank you for the adults who are here today. Lord, I just ask this all in your son's name. Amen. So Hosea, chapter 1, pretty hard book. And if you look at it, Hosea is a man. Doesn't say what his occupation is or anything. We just know that the word of the Lord came onto him, because it says in the very first sentence, the word of the Lord came unto Hosea. Hosea is called to be a prophet. The Lord's come to Hosea and say, I have a message for you to give to your people, to give to Israel. Okay? We also see during this time, I find this interesting, is you have Israel and you have Judah, And if you read what it says about the time that, in just the very first verse, in Hosea's time in Israel, they went through 4 kings, right? So this is a well-to-do, profitable, established nation, and they went through 4 kings just in his lifetime, whereas Judah only has 1 king during his lifetime. So that says something about, yeah, things look good on the outside, but there appears to be some instability in this nation. But that's who Hosea is sent to, and he's asked to do something, right? We are asked to do something by the Lord, and sometimes we go, I don't know that I'm ready for that. But he is asked to do something, and what he's asked to do here is to go marry a wife, and the Lord tells him, your wife is going to be unfaithful. So it's not just go marry a wife who is going to be unfaithful, right? When it says, go take thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, he's saying, you're going to marry this woman, and she's not going to be faithful to you, right? That's something hard. I mean, I sit here, and if the Lord had asked me to do that, it'd be like, why, Lord? Why would you want me to do that? Because, number one, adultery is a sin in the face of God, right? God abhors it. But he tells Hosea to do this, and there's a reason he does this, right? And that's because he's just called Hosea to be prophet to the nation of Israel that is basically committing adultery against God, right? So here's Israel, and that's what we got to realize. Israel's, those 10 tribes are doing well. They're a nation that is profitable. They're enjoying life, but they ain't serving God. They're serving other gods. They're serving Baal. They're serving other people during this time of Hosea, and the Lord is getting ready to punish them. But he sends Hosea to give them that message. And the message Hosea gets, when we get past chapter 3, those are the words that the Lord gives to Hosea to give to the nation of Israel. Chapters 1 through 3 are the Lord using Hosea's life for 2 reasons. One is to show Israel in the life of this man how they're treating God, right? So in Hosea's relationship with his wife Gomer, and we know her name is Gomer from verse 3, that life that people see with Hosea and his wife is an example of Israel's relationship with God at this time, right? God has provided them prosperity, provided for their needs and everything, but they're not serving God. They're not thanking God at this time. So he not only asks Hosea to share the words, he's telling Hosea, you're going to live and show them by your example. You know, we as Christians, we talk about sharing the gospel, but what is our biggest sharing of the gospel in our lives? It's the testimony we give by how we live, by how people see us, right? I can share the gospel with someone at work, you know, have an opportunity to share that 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, but the other 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours every day, my example is how I live, how I act, what they see in me. Okay? So God has asked Hosea to, number one, not only share the words, but you're going to live the example. And then the second thing is, the way this kind of came to me as a leader is, so Hosea would understand God's position, right? It's one thing for God to say, hey, Hosea, go tell them these words. It's another thing for Hosea to be able to empathize with what God feels, right? And I say that because, you know, I don't know that I could bear anything that God feels, right? I could not bear the cross. We know God bared that through Jesus while he was on the cross, right? I can't bear that pain, but Hosea, God has asked Hosea not only to be the example, but when you share those words, you're going to share them from my perspective, right? So when Hosea went to the nation of Israel, he didn't just go to them and repeat what God had told him. He went and told them what God had told him, knowing that what they were doing is the same example of what his life has been, married to a woman of an unfaithful woman. Okay. So verse 2, just going back, and I'll step through this. The beginning of the word of the Lord to Hosea, and the Lord said, Hosea, go take unto thee a wife of whoredoms and children of whoredoms, for the land hath committed great whoredom, departing from the Lord. So go marry someone who's going to be unfaithful to you, as Israel has been unfaithful to me. Okay? So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblam, which conceived and bare him a son. One thing that I always love about the Bible is names have meaning. Okay? Hosea is actually another version of Joshua, which is another version of Jesus. Okay? It's related in that line of words. So Hosea kind of has a name that means redeemer, and as you go through what happens with him and his wife, he actually is an example of the redeemer of her. But we get into these children's names. These children names have meaning as well. So we're going to read verse 4 and 5. And it says, And the Lord said unto him, Call his name Jezreel, for yet a little while, and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to seize the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it shall come to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. So Hosea marries Gomer, and they have a son. And there's a key term here, because I've heard, when I get further to the other two children, there's something I'm going to say that some people find controversial, and other people say, well, that makes sense. And I'm just reading the Bible, so when I get there, you read it how you feel God leads you, and I'll read it and I'll share with you how it's laid on me. But so, and the Lord called his name Jezreel. How many of y'all heard the name Jezreel as you've gone through the Bible? Okay. So I got to find my note here. Jezreel is a name that means God sows. Okay. It doesn't mean God sows destruction or God sows prosperity. It just means God sows. Okay. And so here's God. Think about this. He's telling Hosea, I want you to go to the people and tell them that they are not following me, and I want you to name your son God sows. Right? It's a warning to the people that you need to listen, or I'm about to do something. And he says here what he's about to do. So he tells Hosea to name his son Jezreel. For yet a little while I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. I'm about to punish Israel for their unfaithfulness. And he doesn't just say, I'm going to put a plague on them. He is going to break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. Now, the valley of Jezreel also, that's mentioned many times throughout the Bible. I had a few references here. And let me find them here. Okay, I must not have brought that. Oh, I am missing a page. But a couple of things about Jezreel. One place where it's mentioned is Jezreel is actually where Megiddo is, the valley of Jezreel. And we know where Megiddo is. That's the last battle in Revelation. Right? Jezreel is also got an important. It's an important location related to a couple of the judges. I think it was Deborah and his name escapes me. But during that time, Jezreel was an important piece of that history. But Jezreel comes up many times in the Bible, and it's important to. It's important to the Hebrews people history. But he calls his name Jezreel, which means God sows. So name your child God sows, and I'm about to break Israel. I'm about to punish Israel. Okay. So we know that his first son was named Jezreel, and I want to go back because in verse 3, and it said he took Gomer, which conceived and bare him a son. And that's a key term there as I go through the other children, because I've heard it two ways when it comes to them. So verse 6, and she conceived again and bare a daughter. And God said unto him, Call her name lo ruhamah. For I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, or by horsemen. So lo ruhamah, what does that mean? Okay. And it defines it right here. He said, I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel. So the word ruhamah means mercy or pity. When you add that term lo on the front, it reverses it. It is now no pity, no mercy. So here's God. Name this daughter that Gomer bore no mercy, no pity. Because he has reached the point where he's ready, he's going to break Israel. Israel is done in a nation, and he tells them, I have no more mercy or pity. But he also lets them know, I'm going to take Israel out, but I'm not going to take Judah out. Remember, the split kingdom, the 10 tribes of Israel, or 10 tribes are in Israel, the 2 of Judah. Israel is about to no longer exist at this point. But he does say, I will have mercy on Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God. So he's not only telling Israel, I'm about to take you out, he's saying, they're serving the Lord at this time. Now, Judah had their own issues with their kings, but at this point, the Lord is looking at them as they're serving me, and you're not. Okay? So again, looking back at Hosea's life, he now has a child named Jezreel. There's a daughter named lo ruhamah. That means no mercy or no pity. But there's something here that stood out to me. And I had to go look and see what other people said, and I see it both ways. And that's, it says she conceived and bare a daughter. It didn't say she bare him a daughter. So there's a question out there that some people say, well, that's his daughter, and others say it's no. Well, she's an unfaithful woman, so we don't know. But it was very clear he didn't say it was his daughter. Okay? And he put that low, so no mercy is her name. And we don't know if she's Gomer's, or if she's Hosea's daughter. But we go on, verse 8, and now, when she had weaned, lo ruhamah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said God, call his name lo ami, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your God. Okay? Ami means my people, so lo ami means not my people. Okay? So here's God now saying, on this third son, to Hosea, who is the prophet to Israel, whose life is an example for the people to see of what he's teaching them. Because during all this time, he is teaching to Israel. When we get to verses 4 to the end of the book, that message is going on all this time. So imagine it, here's Hosea sharing the word of God with the people, and in the meantime, this is going on in his own household. Okay? But he has a son called Lo Ami. He names him Lo Ami, not my people, which is a condemnation of the nation of Israel. Not only will I have no mercy on you, but I am not calling you my people. You are not my people because you don't serve me. Thank goodness we have a God that one day we stand before him and says, well, I know you accepted Christ, but you didn't worship me your whole life. Here, you kind of got away from me, so you're not my people. Okay? The nation of Israel, or that kingdom of Israel, those 10 tribes, God has now said, you are not my people. At this point, he's about to wipe them out, or about to take them out as a nation, and I will have no mercy because you are not my people. Names and words that are in the Bible have a lot of meaning. Okay. So again, this is Hosea's life. He marries a woman who's unfaithful at God's command. He has 3 children. One of them is Jezreel, the company, God sows, and he's about to sow destruction on Israel. He has another one, there will be no mercy. And then the third one, because you are not my people. Okay. So Hosea's life, in his marriage, in his relationship that God appointed during his time of ministering to the people of Israel is an example of his relationship with Israel, right? Then we get into verse 10 and 11, and these are verses of hope, right? So we get to verse 9, and we're like, oh, Israel's done for, right? This kingdom, they're gone. The Lord is so angry at them, and he is, but we read verses 10 and 11, there's a promise in here. Yet the number of the children of Israel, shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Okay? And in verse 11, Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. So now we get back to that name, Jezreel. So here's God, he says, not my people, no mercy. But he comes back and tells them, you will still be as the sand of the sea. Your numbers shall increase. Right? You remember that promise was made back before the people ever went into Egypt. God promised that they would be a great nation, unnumbered, all that. And so it's a hard message to, here's Hosea teaching us, telling people, you're no longer going to be a nation. And then here's God giving them the rest of it. You will still be a number of people. And in verse 11, we see then the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall be out of the land, for the great shall be the day of Jezreel. So God's going to sow their destruction, and we know in history that northern kingdom, and as we know during Hosea's lifetime, the Assyrians came in and took them away. They were no longer a nation of Israel. Right? But here we see God sows. He's going to sow that promise he made before, because there is a day where they will be brought back out along with Judah, which at this point we already know Judah's not being punished at this moment, and they shall be one nation again. And that does occur in the Old Testament. There is a point where they're in the Assyrians, Judah has been taken in, and I can't remember at the moment by who, but there's a point where they come back and gather back together as a nation. That's why they're there at the time of Jesus. Right? They're brought back together. Now, they're not a nation ruled by one king at that moment, but they are a nation at that point when Jesus comes back. So, verse 1, we see this as God calling Hosea with a message for the people of Israel, but using his life to reflect what his relationship with the people are and why he's doing this. Then we get to verse 2, or chapter 2 and chapter 3. And if you look at a lot of commentary, or you read what other people say, a lot of them say verses 1 through 3 are dealing with Hosea's life and his relationship with Gomer. And so they look at verse 2 and they say, well, this is about her adultery and his restoration. I have to be honest, I don't read it that way. I think it's reflective of that, but I don't read it that way, because I read chapter 2 as God is talking about Israel here. Okay? And the reason I say that, because when you get to verse 3, I think it shifts back to Hosea and his relationship with Gomer. And the reason I say that is chapter 2, verse 1. It says, Say ye unto your brethren, Ami, and your sisters, Ruhamah, plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, neither am I her husband. Let her therefore put away her whoredoms out of her sight, and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, and set her as the day that she was born, and make her as a wilderness, and set her like a dry land, and slay her with thirst. And I will not have mercy upon her children, for they be the children of whoredoms. For their mother hath played the harlot, she that conceived them hath done shamefully, for she said, I will go after my lovers, that give me my bread, my water, my wool, my flax, mine oil, and my drink. You know, the chapters and the verses in the Bible, I believe, are inspired by God, but they're not standalone, right? You have to read the context of any verse you read, even if it comes from another chapter or it passes into another chapter. So when I was reading this, I was reading verse 10 and 11. It's talking about him promising Israel to bring them back out of this punishment. And I get to chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Say unto your brethren Ami and your sister Ruhamah." At this point, he hasn't fulfilled that promise, right? He's continuing this. Here's what I'm going to do, but for now, go tell your brethren Ami and your sister Ruhamah this, right? Tell them to go talk to their mother, plead with their mother to come back. And here, I believe he's talking about the children of Israel pleading to their leaders, pleading to their nation. He's telling these children, go talk to your mother, talk to your nation, because your nation has abandoned me. Your nation has turned away from me. Your nation has been unfaithful to me. They've been following this other family because he hasn't given them new names yet. So according to God, it's Lo Ami and Lo Ruhamah, right? From God's perspective, that's their names. But according to the nation of Israel, they are the people of Israel, right? Ami is a child of Israel. He's just not a child of God at this point because Israel has rejected God. And so when he's talking about plead with your mother, plead with her, she's not my wife, lest I punish her by putting her in the wilderness, have no mercy on her children because she's been the harlot. This is God sending a message that Israel has not been faithful to me. Right? Just as Gomer was not faithful to Hosea, Israel has not been faithful to me. And he goes on, and you can read through here, and it talks about she'll follow her lover. So Israel will continue to follow the other gods. Right? And there will come a point, as we go further down, that will even dry up for them. Right? Their prosperity, if you read through the rest all the way to verse 13, it's talking about Israel continuing to follow other gods, and things dry up. And we know that punishment comes in because they are taken out as a nation because the Assyrians come in and conquer them and take them away, take them into captivity. We get the first 14, and it starts talking about his restoration of Israel. Okay? Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably to her. And I will give her vineyards from thence in the valley of Achor for the door of hope, and she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, as in the days when she came up out of the land of Egypt. Who came up out of the land of Egypt? The Hebrew people. Right? So as I'm reading this, we've gone from they're following other gods. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to be wandering out there. They're punished. They're no longer who they are. And then he changes us. He changes here and he says, I will bring her into the wilderness and speak comfortably unto her. I will give her this, I'll give her the vineyards, the valley of Achor, and the door of hope. And in that day, as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt. So here's God's promise. I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I'm going to bring you out of this captivity. Right? I am going to restore you. And it shall be at that day, saith the Lord, that thou shalt call me Ishi, and shalt call me no more Baali. For I will take away the names of Baalim out of her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. At this time, they will recognize me as the Lord, and they will forget those other gods. Right? Israel is going to recognize the Lord for what he's done here. They've forgotten what he did before, but his actions, they're going to remember, and they're going to turn back to God, is what it's basically saying here. And in that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and with the fowls of heaven and with the creeping things on the ground. I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth and will make them to lie down safely. For I will betroth thee unto me forever, Yea, I will betroth thee unto me in righteousness and judgment, and loving kindness and mercies. And I will even betroth thee unto me in faithfulness, and thou shalt know the Lord. And it shall come to pass in that day, I will hear, saith the Lord, I will hear the heavens, and they shall hear the earth, and the earth shall hear the corn and the wine and the oil, and they shall hear Jezreel. Because God's sowing it. Jezreel means God sows. And I will sow her unto me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon her that have not obtained mercy, and I will say to them which were not my people, thou art my people, and they shall say, thou art my God. So at this point, he's told them, here's what's going to happen, but here's the promise. I will bring you back out, right? And so the Lord is saying that he's promised them. We know he promised them that people, he's keeping that promise. This is not a time of ending for Israel. It's just a time of punishment, right? And he is going to restore them. So a lot of people, where I see some challenges of that is because a lot of people look at chapter 2 and it says, that's Hosea and Gomer. I know, that's God and Israel. Now I can imagine in that time, Hosea's life with Gomer, everything's going on. I get it's the same kind of thing, right? She's been unfaithful. Who knows what's happened there, but it is a rough time. And then we get to chapter 3, and the focus switches back to Hosea and Gomer. And if this doesn't represent God's relationship with us as believers, I don't know what does. Okay? When you read it, it's just 5 verses. I'm going to read it, and then we'll finish out with this. But then said the Lord unto me. Remember, who's writing Hosea? Hosea. So this is God talking to Hosea. Then the Lord said unto me, Go yet, love a woman beloved of her friend, yet an adulteress, according to the love of the Lord toward the children of Israel, who look to other gods and love flagons of wine. Hosea, go love this woman who's been unfaithful to you, as I have loved Israel who's been unfaithful to me. Okay? That's what he's saying. So I bought her. Why he ended up to buy her, who knows where her life had ended up. But Hosea went and bought her for 15 pieces of silver, and for a homer of barley, and half a homer of barley. So not only, he didn't just go and say, okay, Gomer, you're coming home. He had to pay a price for him. God doesn't just come to us and say, hey, you're coming home. God paid a price for us. He paid the ultimate price for us. Okay? Hosea's relationship to Gomer in that moment is a representation of what God has done for us. We're not his people when we're born. He loves us. We're his creation. But we are not his people. We are born in sin. Right? God paid that price. Okay? So I went and bought her. He bought her, and he said to her, Thou shalt abide for me many days. Thou shalt not play the harlot, and thou shalt not be for another man. So will I also be for thee. So you're no longer unfaithful. You belong to me. Right? And I will be your husband. Or he's our God. We belong to him as his children. Okay? For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, and without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim. And afterward shall the children of Israel return, and seek the Lord their God, and David their king, and shall fear the Lord in his goodness in latter days. Those last 2 verses, 4 and 5, yes, there is a point where God called the people of Israel and the Hebrews back to be a nation, right? And they existed at that point, but they didn't have a king. When Jesus came, they didn't have a king. They were ruled by the Romans. They were a province, right? Those 2 verses, I don't believe, are talking about that restoration of Israel at the time for Jesus' coming. I think those are talking about the restoration of Israel for the second coming, or when the Lord returns to the earth. There is a point where Israel will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. Who is David their king? That's going to be Jesus Christ. And they shall fear the Lord and his goodness in the latter days. So, I'm going to close it there. Hosea, called a minor prophet, it's a big lesson for us as Christians, because it's to Israel and it's about Israel. But I think if you look out throughout Israel's history, they're a lesson on a national stage, which is a lesson for us on our individual stage in our relationships with the Lord. Right? God, they turned away from God. God punished them. God didn't forget them, and God restored them. Right? We as God's creation, we turned away from God. He punished us. He paid a price for us. Again, I missed that. Hosea paid a price to restore Gomer. He paid a price to restore us. So every word in this Bible has meaning. The minor prophets have meaning. The story of Hosea and Gomer have meaning, and it's not an easy story, right? There are people who complain about the Bible. They'll say, "Oh, the Bible's full of violence and it's full of sin and unfaithfulness and all that." Yeah, because he's trying to teach us a lesson that he does not like that. Right? Hosea is teaching a lesson that God does not like our unfaithfulness to him, but he hasn't forgotten us. And he will restore us, just as Hosea restored Gomer as his wife. And we know that, as Christians, we are restored in that relationship with him. But there's a lot of people out there who are not. And so, just as Hosea's life and his relationship to Gomer were an example for the people of Israel, our lives and how we interact are an example of our relationship with Christ. So we'll go ahead and close out with prayer, and then I guess wait for service. Dear Lord, I thank you for this day. Lord, I thank you for your word. I thank you for just being able, Lord, just preserving your word and the lessons and things that we can learn from your word, Lord. I just thank you for the opportunity to read the Bible and to understand it and seek you, Lord, for that understanding. Lord, we know you walk that relationship with us, Lord, and I thank you for the opportunity to restore that. And thank you for your Son and the gift of salvation, Lord. Lord, I just ask that you be with each of us as we go from here. Help us to keep in mind that our own lives are examples. Lord, I just pray that you be with the service to follow, be with the singing, and be with the pastor as he brings your message. Lord, I pray if there be anybody here today in our services that do not know you as their Savior, that today be the day of their salvation. I ask this all in your Son's name.